What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 106 of Value Town. I'm ChanManV, and joined, of course, by my co-host each and every week, Noxious. What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. Just living the life, staying at home, playing video games. That's what I do.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I want to welcome to the show for the first time in 106 episodes. This is crazy. I want to welcome from Team CLG, Xixo. What's up, buddy?
Hey.
Hey, all right. How you been, man? I know you've been traveling a lot lately, so I'm glad we got a chance to catch you before you were sleeping today or trying to recover from
I just
jet
got
lag.
back from China, but it's all good.
Cool. So how did so ladder just ended last night, right?
Yes.
And did you get a chance to play at all? Because I know in China, like you were, obviously in a different region and super busy. So any chance to try to get some of those ladder points for the season?
Yeah, I tried the last 2 days, but I failed.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, right? If you can't really play in the last 2 days anymore like you used to, right?
I mean, I don't know. It's like you have to highball at some point with Shaman or whatever, and I didn't. I'm not sure. I also didn't feel like I played very well, so it's kind of on me to not finish.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
good. It's tough, man, when you come back from traveling and stuff to feel engaged in laddering. It can be really, really tough. But anyways, guys, we got a ton of things to talk about. We just kind of had like a mini question from a Xixo interview, but that's what we're going to start off with, just getting a chance to talk to him, catch up with him, and just everything that's going on. And then we'll do our, our decks, where we talk about our decks or our week in Hearthstone, which will include that. And then we'll do a news segment or a semi-news segment with topic and a tip of the week. So we'll have a discussion topic that, just will create some kind of general discussion between the three of us. And then, of course, we'll have one tip of the week for folks that, might not or might be struggling on ladder, might not understand why they're not winning, and maybe this one tip will help you out. Got Mekkatorque's Workshop too with a bunch of custom cards. We got some cards from patrons, some from viewers, some from Noxious' stream where they had the collective
That was
card
awesome,
building.
but
Yeah.
I'll go through the process of how it happened to be like somewhat. I'll try to make it quick, but it was pretty cool.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and that's for those of you who don't want to know what Mekkatorque's Workshop is. That's where we come up with new card concepts, and we use hearthcards.net to build some cards for us to talk about. And then lastly, we've got a couple questions from the viewers in Q&A, and they got some interesting questions that we'll be able to cover here. But I want to start off with talking to Xixo, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk to you since, obviously, forever, because you've never been on the show, but I haven't even personally gotten a chance to talk to you about joining CLG, because it's huge. I mean, CLG is one of the big esports brands, team brands in the space, but they've never really gotten into Hearthstone. So this is, I think it's their very first foray into Hearthstone. So yeah, tell me about that. Like, just how's it been being on CLG?
Yeah, so far it's been pretty good. We actually joined the team a month before the announcement, but there was some issues announcing it. But yeah, we are very happy to be on CLG and looking forward for the year with CLG.
So who's on the team with you?
Hoy and Surrender.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty solid team right there. You guys are playing in Trinity, right?
No.
No?
We formed after they did the invite.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Trinity
that's
was actually the
right.
invites had already gone out, and
Oh.
the team wasn't made yet. As far as I think, it was in the works already for a while, but it wasn't officially announced.
I
So you
see.
had to come out after Trinity.
Well, you guys would have done really, really well. So
Probably,
yeah, I
yeah.
got to
I
catch
guess
them,
so.
catch them the next time around. But yeah, so CLG, I know you were team. How long were you teamless for before this whole CLG signing?
So we ended up leaving Navi end of September, and we signed the contract with Navi early December, so 2 months without a team.
Okay. Yeah. How was that search? Like, there a lot of people I know, at least during the latter parts of the 2016, maybe even the second half, were just saying that, there just wasn't as much sponsor interest in Hearthstone, and, as it used to be, and even some teams not being as interested. But it sounds like might not have been the case.
Yeah, no, it was like the opposite. We had like too many reasonable offers that we had to consider.
That's
So it's
awesome,
like
man.
I was talking with like basically all the big esports organizations that aren't in Hearthstone yet. And yeah, it's like needed some time to talk to every team and figure out what's the best option.
Yeah, I have a question regarding that actually. I'm sure you've been approached by a lot of teams who might have not wanted the full three of you, right? Like, because I know when Osaka went for Alliance, then you had Hoy surrender and yourself left. Like, were you ever approached to be just the first and only pickup of the old Navi team, and just had to decline that, or how did that go?
Yeah, it's some offers, but like every time a team contacted me, I was like, I wouldn't join by myself. So it's like some teams are like, okay, we consider getting the team. Then some teams are just like, okay, we can't pick up all three of you, so bye. So, but yeah, we actually like started wanting to join a team with Ostkaka, but there are multiple team leagues like the Trinity Series coming up, which only want 3-player teams. So it just made sense that Ostkaka joins Alliance and we stick together.
Okay, I didn't actually realize you guys were a package, or you guys, were shopping as a package.
Hoy and Surrender helped me out a lot during the last year, so I was like, not gonna leave them alone. So it's just
that's a team bro right there. That is a team bro right there. Yeah,
no question.
That's good stuff, man. I like to hear that. That's just always the kind of that makes teams worth something, right? Like, for all the talk about teams just not being important in Hearthstone, it's kind of nice to see that at least you guys look out for each other.
Yeah, it's real teammates, right? That's loyalty and everything that comes along with it. That's actually great to see, and that would encourage more actual team centric feel to the community, as well as even to some of these events, instead of just a bunch of individuals thrown together for branding purposes, and things like that. It's good to hear. Definitely great to hear. So in terms of China, like, you were in China for a long time, right? Like maybe a month or something like that?
Yeah, like almost 3 weeks, I think.
Okay, 3 weeks. Okay, just 3 weeks. That's cool. And you guys ran into each other maybe, right? Like, were you both at, you were obviously at the same tournament, right?
Yes.
The Star Ladder tournament, given that you did super well in it.
It was a weird event, right? Like, I guess it was just a big... I don't know how it was on the player side exactly, but on the caster side, it was a mess. But you guys had some problems to deal with too, like connectivity and whatnot.
Yeah, that was a Hearthstone servers going down in China. It's not really the organizer's fault. It's just like the Chinese Hearthstone servers went down for like almost a full day. So
oh my god, really?
Like I was playing against PNC. We disconnected, and the servers were down for like over 5 hours.
Yep.
So
right.
Can't the organizer for that, but yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't think that's ever. Has that ever happened in NA? Have we ever lost Hearthstone for
that long?
A day? That is insane, man.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, right? I know Europe might have had that happen before, but yeah, NA, we thankfully haven't had the experience of that. That's crazy. How'd you like it in China though? I definitely hear mixed reviews about China. Hearthstone being probably the more negative end of the spectrum. So how was it for you as a player?
Yeah, that some terms are different. Like, for example, I feel like they value the competitive side a little less and like more the production side. Like, the people there are more worried about how the stream looks than about how like soundproof and all that stuff. But overall, I really enjoyed China and had a great time.
All right, that's good. You like the food there?
Yeah, most of it.
Most of it, okay.
Like,
cool.
The selection of stuff
looks like it moves.
Oh god, come on.
If it was alive, I'm not touching it, but I'll take the rest.
Exactly. It's always cooked. It's very rare that Chinese people eat raw stuff, to be honest. I've eaten some raw lobster and some seafood stuff like that before, which was kind of odd. I don't think I've ever done that, like even just with Japanese food. But other than that, Chinese people generally like cooked food, so it's not going to be alive, at least.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So after Starlight, that was Star Ladder, right? The one that you guys were at. What'd you do after that? I forgot. You had the China. No. What was it? Yeah. What was the other event that you were at?
The tournament was called Titana. It was just an invitational. That was 12 Chinese players and 4 Western players. So it was Sweep and Firebest channel, but it was mostly a Chinese event.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was me, Frozen, Ostkaka, and Pavel playing as Western players.
Okay. So China, kind of a China versus China. I mean, just China versus non-China kind of thing, or
it's just like a 16 players normal tournament.
Just a normal tournament. Okay, got it. Yeah, because I know the China versus NA was during that time too, right? So
Yeah, that was the week before, and I was also in Shanghai. I spent the week in between just hanging out with the NA players.
they should have just rented you as an NA player for the week.
That would have actually worked, probably.
Yeah. You could have been the body shield so that, you know, like or you could have been the audible wall for the event so that they couldn't have any of that kind of talking to each other or whatever. But okay, that's cool. So you should go back to China and you'd be eager to go back to China for some more events in the future?
Yeah, I qualified for the Celestial playoffs. It's like
Oh,
the best of
nice.
17
That's
tournament.
good.
It's been
Yes.
going on.
Yeah.
They will, like, the playoffs will happen at some point, so I guess I will go back for that. But I'm
Okay.
not sure what date that will be on.
Oh, that's cool. That's definitely going to be great. I mean, the one thing that's great is that the Chinese tournaments, they pay really well, right? Like in terms of prize pool and even
Yeah.
casting,
Yeah,
right? Noxious, they pay pretty well, right?
For casting, it's pretty average.
Okay.
The thing is, if they invite you and the servers go down to 5 hours and you're still paid, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess the work to payoff ratio is probably good, but the time invested, like you go to China, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
live in NA, so going to China is still a pretty big thing. You know, the time it takes back and forth.
Mhm.
It's basically 2 days you spend doing nothing, and then you have to wait around. So it's not like all butterflies and rainbows, but it's honestly like a pretty good. On average, it's pretty good, and they treat their talent pretty well. Like that's one of the things that China does is like
Mhm.
they want a stream to look good, and they want the talent to be like this was the best fucking place I ever went to. So they do like all they can if you want to be accommodated. But yeah, the
Okay.
competitive side of things is like a different story.
Yeah,
Well-
I went to China twice and won 20K each time, so
Yeah. It must suck, dude. It must suck real bad. I mean, even that
man.
China versus NA tournament, I think it paid off really well, even to the loser. So,
well, they got 4K each, I think, a little more
Yeah.
because I got like bonus money for the 5-0 win from Sidonia.
Sidonia.
But yeah,
yeah, cash in
they
some
got like
money.
about $5,000 each.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. That you don't see events like that very often, at least in NA.
They almost never do. I don't think
yeah,
you see the scope of the events in China is so beyond anything we have here because like there's so much money to go around, but it's allocated in very specific projects that oftentimes get funded by the government, as far as I'm aware. And then you have companies like
Really?
Alibaba going in and just going crazy because like there's an oversight. Like WCA was partially like government funded, I think, a while back.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I know Alibaba's come in to do this one. Like that was just an overly wealthy company that just figured,
Jack Ma.
fuck it, we could
They're like
spend 100K
Hearthstone.
on prod, but we could also spend 150K on prize money. Let's do it. And it's like a drop in the water for them. Like even if the tournament something bad happens, like whatever, we'll move on with our lives, and we'll do another one next time. It'll be better. So they're not too sketched out by things going poorly.
It still doesn't make sense to me.
Interesting.
Just spending like that. But,
Sure,
but maybe there are crazy streaming numbers over there though. I just don't
yeah,
realize.
probably. I mean, we had 2 school buses full of people come in on first day to fill up that stadium, bro. It was like, oh my
Wait,
god,
2 school buses, not that many people, Noxious.
But it was
I
like
hate to.
two Chinese school buses. They make it bigger for more people, and then people just sit on top of each other to get in.
What? Are they like quadruple decker and so they bring in 1,000
to explain to you
people?
the scope of
Oh
how it
my
is, you
God.
don't actually see the bus as they're all like hanging on to the bus as it moves.
The
There's so many
sides
of them
stuff
coming over.
hanging on the windows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, to be
alright.
fair though, in Morocco that's a thing. So
Yeah, well,
just
okay,
extending
that's probably true. Well, anyways, that's great to hear. Sounds like you did very very well in China, Xixo.
you did.
Yeah, and it's definitely good to be, at least in that network of people that they ask, players. And I think you're definitely in that group of players that they always ask for events. So that's awesome for you, man. Definitely great.
I mean, both times I went to China, I had played the qualifiers. It's not like I got invited there.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah.
true because it was Star Ladder both times, right?
And it started actually had to play the qualifier to play the online
to play the
round.
online one. Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
but
so-
yeah, like I did a lot of interviews in China. They seemed like very interested in me. So
Cool.
I'm very excited to get invited to future events in China. Like apparently I have a pretty big brand there now.
Yeah.
I take it.
Did anybody think you were Eminem there? Like, or did they confuse you for another celebrity? Maybe.
Yeah, probably. Maybe just because I had green hair.
You just go on the stage.
That's
like,
right. You did have green hair. I
Yeah.
forgot about that. That's gone now, right? I remember
Actually,
thinking,
it's
is
like
it?
silver now. Got a new haircut today, new color.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like I made it blue, but by the time I went to China, the blue kind of faded to green.
Faded to green, yeah.
Did
But
did
yeah,
Frodan
now
give
it's
you
silver.
did Frodan give you styling advice?
No, but he seemed happy with how it went for me, I think. Like he
You're
didn't
like, I
seem
like your
disappointed.
hair, man.
I like your.
I hope
That's
you
Frodan.
win.
I like your hair, man. That sounds like Dan. That's funny. Well, anyways, glad to have you back, or at least I'm sure you're glad to be back at home, just because it's definitely it wears on you after traveling overseas, especially to China for so long.
I kind of enjoy going outside and not having smog.
Ouch! Ouch!
Shots fired, but I can't
exactly.
see them.
I can't see them. All right. Well, anyways, why don't we talk about a little bit about Hearthstone, since I know a lot of people listening and watching are probably waiting for us to talk some more about some specifics. And let's just do our deck segment. Like our week in Hearthstone, maybe some decks that we've been playing. And me and Xixo actually brought a couple of Renolocks to discuss. His being better than mine, of course. But why don't we talk about them right now? And we'll start off with your Renolock that apparently is Hoy's Renolock, and a couple changes to just what we've been seeing with just the standard Renolock that's been out there recently with no combo, and sometimes you see a rag, sometimes you don't, and then recently we've been seeing corruption, which you see in this one. And then some mind control tech. So why don't you talk about this one? What's a little bit different? Oh, there's a very different card in this deck too. So why don't you talk about it a little bit?
Yes, this is Hoy's list. The ladder for the last weeks has been like mostly aggro based, and on an A, like I looked at the stats, and NA is even more aggro based than EU. So Hoy just wanted to beat the aggro shamans and whatnot. So he decided that the other 6 drops you can play, like Reno Emperor or Sylvanas, aren't really good against aggro. So he wanted a 6 drop that's better against aggro. So he went with Frost Elemental instead.
He said Frost
And
Elemental, guys. He actually did say Frost Elemental. Just making sure you guys aren't hallucinating. So that's correct. That's interesting, man. Very, very interesting.
also this doesn't have a giant, the mountain giant. It's just
Yeah.
not supposed to tap until turn 4. It just plays against aggro shaman. It's not like you still have a reasonable chance against control decks just by playing Jaraxxus. Like it's not
Yep.
like you can see those matchups, but yeah, the game plan is to play stuff before turn 4.
Yeah, I kind of like the distribution of minions in the deck. Like you play Sun Fury and Argus for the massive taunt line. The Frost Elemental helps a lot against the weapon classes, of course. Corruptions is the earliest game removal in the game right now. Like that's gonna kill something that you need to get rid of. Hint, hint. Small time Buccaneer if you're desperate. And it actually pairs very well with Frost Elemental in combo plays against some decks. Which is also another consideration. I feel like there's been some argument actually about Sylvanas specifically. I haven't heard as much complaints about Emperor, but a lot of people said that they felt like Sylvanas in Reno decks was just not a good fit anymore based on the metagame. So that's probably why that Frost Elemental makes more sense.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Sylvanas, has it been in the most recent ones? I feel like Sylvanas is a kind of maybe
most lists.
Yeah, maybe the most. I think it dropped for a little bit and then came back. But I would agree with that too. It's pretty clunky. I mean, you can never, outside of like maybe the power. If you were running power at the time, you couldn't really do something on that turn with it, right? So it was always a little challenging to actually have it be impactful, especially against Jade. Every time I played Sylvanas, it was always after they had like a 6/6 Jade golem, and it's just like I'm not gonna do much with this. I mean, I might steal one, but he's gonna have another giant Jade golem, so I can totally see that. But this is interesting. This is definitely definitely targeting Jade. Just more of the shamans and the Jade shaman decks since it's so popular. Would you say this is really great on ladder, or do you think this is just more of a competitive deck?
I mean, Hoy did get to number 1 on an A with the list.
Okay,
He didn't finish number 1 because he decayed afterwards, but he got number 1 like let's say 3 or so days ago with it. Yeah. I know that Ostkaka also did reasonably well with it on ladder, so yeah, it seems to work, but maybe it's just because it was unexpected. I have no clue. Like now that people know the list, I'm not sure how that changes.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about Spellbreaker? Just having silence in the deck.
Yeah, I mean, just let's deal with rogues and it's
Yeah.
decent in the meta right now, like kill a flame tongue totem or questing adventure.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that sounds at least like my experience too. That's cool. But yeah, so for those of you that can't see it listening right now, it's basically, I would say, corruption for, what would you say? Corruption for Mountain Giant, Frost Elemental for Sylvanas. I'm just kind of, I don't want to go through all 30 cards. And
Yeah.
what else? What else is maybe a bit different?
You
The
can also just
Defender of
go to
Argus.
Hoy's Twitter, which is CLG Hoy, and
Yeah,
find it there.
you can find it there too, or you can find it on the show notes. I always post the show notes on ChanManV.tv, so you can check it out there. But yep, really good. And for those of you playing against a ton of Jade Shaman, which everybody is playing against a ton of Jade Shaman and Aggro Shaman, check this deck out for sure if you want to have some success. So I brought a Renolock 2 that's similar, obviously, because the base package of a Renolock is the same. But I decided just to try Cthulhu in it, just because I've been trying Cthulhu in all kinds of different types of deck recently, and it's, once I get like in this kind of mode, I just like try it in every single kinds of deck just to see how it fits. And I was doing Cthulhu, buff Paladin, and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try in Reno just because it kind of, there's these 2 and 3 drops and 4 drops that do curve pretty well and can help fight against some of the Jade Shaman lists or just some of those decks that are just mid range. So it naturally does that while it's buffing your Cthulhu, and then at the end Cthulhu can actually be a finisher, or you can remove the board a lot of times too, as well as go into Jiraxxus after it, right? So I decided to give it a try. And it's actually pretty good. It's surprisingly not bad at all. I mean, I don't think it's better than the last list that we just saw, but there are maybe a few decks that it is better against just because of the Cthulhu finish. And if Bran lives going into the Cthulhu finish, then it's like auto win like every single time, right? So
Sure.
it's kind of interesting. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever tried this or not.
I mean, like a couple of months ago, actually it's more than a couple of months ago, but AK Wonder qualified for prelim, so for top 8 for HCT, playing Renolock with Kasoon.
Oh, okay, cool.
And it's been around for like quite some time. I tried it like a month ago or so, and I felt like since Shaman just has Totem Golem and like the Kasoon minions don't really go well against that. You can't really play your minions, but you also can't really tap with that deck that much. So it felt kind of weird. But yeah, the deck's been around and seemed decent before, so I could see it coming back.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely don't get to tap much. I mean, maybe a couple times when you're going into like turns 8 and 9, and sometimes you get those games but it's not against Shaman, of course. Shaman, you're never tapping, but sometimes you get those games where you can tap to like Twilight Drake. But yeah, so it can be hard to draw Cthulhu, but it's nice to have. I mean, there's like a lot of taunt actually in this deck. That's kind of why I ended up playing Crazed Worshipper too. It's not the greatest stats, of course, but it's been nice just getting some taunt without playing Argus or playing Sun Fury, because I don't really have that many targets to play with it that are very efficient. But yeah, anyways, it's a variation that you guys can try. It's only 5 cards from the Cthulhu package, and so replacing like Malin Giant and I actually from some of the taunt minions, at least from the previous list we saw, like there's no Sun Fury, there's no Argus, no mind control tech. So the Cthulhu cards basically replaced those. But I guess I don't really need Emperor in this deck either. I probably could have replaced that.
Emperor Thorson, I don't think is gonna be like the Usher of Souls. Seems like another 5 drop you could put in, like the 5/6 for 5 for Warlocks. It buffs when a friendly minion dies. Buffs your Cthulhu.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that card.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's just not worth it because it's like a pit fighter 99% of the time. And it doesn't even buff Cthulhu when it dies.
True.
But I don't know. Like if you're looking, I wouldn't necessarily cut. I'd probably play Sylvanas over Emperor here, but
yeah,
it's really
I think
just a
so
matter
too.
of preference.
Makes
If you're gonna get to turn 10, then I mean, Brand Twin Emps works. Otherwise, it's gonna be on turn 8 potentially.
Yeah.
If you Emperor them, which is fine.
When it comes down to it, it depends on what you draw. Like if you get Kazakus, easy game. If you get or actually Brand Kazakus, super easy game. And if you get Reno, sometimes it's gonna be easy game. But if you don't get either of those, it's generally not a good game. At least most of the time when I play it.
It's very hard. when you don't have the taunts, right? As you mentioned, no Argus, no Sun Fury, really lowers your chances of stalling, which is kind of what you have to do with the deck.
Yeah. Then you gotta, be like Xixo to be able to pull out some of these wins. It's a lot tougher, and that's why Renolock is actually a solid deck in my eyes, just because it's it takes skill to play it to a high level or high winning percentage, in my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on Xixo. Maybe you disagree actually.
I mean, there's like a lot of skill in it, but I don't think that the skillful matchups are the matchups that are being played right now. Like, for example, the Renolock mirror is very skillful, but you don't queue that much. The games against aggro, it's mostly just whether you draw the stuff you need.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point. Like, one of the things that I hear too much of on the there's a huge circle jerk in the Reddit community of like, control takes skill to play and aggro doesn't. The truth is that is so polarized. Like, it's such a polarized way to look at the meta, because if you're a Reno deck against aggro, you're basically playing your cards on curve, and the amount of options you have every turn, pretty much none, right? Like, it's very tough to find options that aren't obvious, because oftentimes you have 1-2 drop that's good, and then the other one is subpar by default. So until turn like 7, your turns are just planned out. It's like really, really clear what you have to do. And so
there's no turn 7. You have Reno turn 6 and they concede, or you don't have Reno turn 6 and you concede.
Yeah, that's about right.
That's the point, right? Like, that's what I'm going. It's like, before turn 7, there's nothing for you to do. You just play your cards as you curve them in, and
well,
that's
it's like,
it.
Do you get Doomsayer first? Like, it's like this. I mean, Xixo drew that flow. I mean, he's a very good at drawing a bunch of flow charts, right? But one flow chart is, do you get Doomsayer first, or in the first 2 turns? If you don't get Doomsayer in the first 2 turns, do you get Kazakus on 4? If you don't get Kazakus on 4, do you get Reno? If you don't get any of those things, just GG, like, most of the time.
Bottom right it. Yeah. So that's kind of my point, right? Like, control doesn't mean it's by default always more skill demanding. And there's an argument to be made for Shaman being actually pretty complex at high levels, more so in the mirror matches. Outside of, like, I feel like the fact that Jade is overtaking Shaman is kind of triggering me, because like that takes out a lot of the a lot of the nuance in trading just go out of the window, where you're like, okay, my 4-drop either eats Jade Lightning or it doesn't. Rip. Like, my Drake is dead, for instance, and then it's just, you look at the Shaman's board growing and growing, and they get some of that Curvestone feeling back into the deck, which I think, for all the hate against the aggro deck, it kind of had to figure out its overload mechanics, whereas the Jade just smashes shit down a little bit more consistently. I don't know if that's something you feel, Xixo, but to me, the Jade package is just not interesting. It's strong, but it's not, like, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in general, the Jade things don't have many decisions. Like, Jade Druid is also... I don't know. I don't really like the Jade mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are growing tired of the Jade mechanic at this point, and I think the biggest issue with it, especially when you're talking about mirrors, is that the Jade golems end up getting out of control, like, well beyond what the removal capability is of a shaman, unless you're running elemental destruction, which nobody is running that in the mid range right this second. So, like, once you get beyond the Malisham Portal, maybe 2 across the board, or maybe in some folks, over time have run even Lightning Storm and get out of the 3 or 4 range, then it's just literally like, okay, who actually gets the right Jade cards at the right moment? Who gets the brand Jade, play at the right moment? And, it becomes much more like, Arena-like, or, Curvestone-like. And that's...
It's very snowball, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue I have with it. It's just, you can't remove the board very efficiently, in the mirror especially. There's just nothing for you to do.
So it's very interesting, because if you look at, like, the Jade Druid, right? When they made the mechanic, it was obvious they wanted Jade Druid to be a control deck that was trying to ramp up slowly to huge golems, and instead of going to fatigue, just close out the game by not letting you continue, because they'll punch you in the face for 8 and 9 repeatedly until you're basically dead. And on the flip side, Shaman actually has a lot of tools that work as a control deck. Like, those cards they gave Shamans, like the Jade Lightning, the Jade Chieftain, the Jade Claws, they actually kind of fit a Jade Shaman control deck. The thing is, they also fit a mid-range and potentially aggro deck. Like, the fact that they fit in 3 archetypes, like, you would never think about building an aggro Jade Druid deck. Like, that would be nonsensical. Like it would just seem weird to just go for the aggro route on that deck. Maybe there's someone who's gonna make it and suddenly it's like the new thing, but it just seems odd, right? It just doesn't fit. But for Shaman, it fits across the board in the 3 archetypes. And Rogue, well, let's not talk about Jade Rogue, right? Like they just
Yeah, I think it's just that Jade Lightning is so overpowered. Like,
yeah.
I think just the card Jade Lightning makes it worse to play all the other Jade cards in Shaman.
It's a swing card. Like, you know, people don't really look at these Jade cards in that fashion, but, you know, we've always been very hesitant or very worried about big swing cards, or not even liked it over time, like BGH, you know, cards that we didn't like, you know, if it was cheap. And that's pretty much what Jade Lightning is, as well as Jade Claw to an extent. That's why Shaman Jade cards are so powerful. They remove something and they put a minion on the board, swinging the tempo completely. And with the brand, with Jade Claw being so cheap too, gosh, the brand plays are just like automatic for Shaman, like super easy for them to pull it off with Spirit and with Jade Spirit and with Jade Claw. So I think that play is the one that's, you know, not talked about a ton. Just the fact that Shaman has that ability more often than Druid or Rogue, and it's crazy at this point. I mean, I've seen people just double Jade Claw like with a brand, right, and just like literally fill the board with 2 weapons. It's crazy.
But brands rotating out, so when the rotation hits, maybe the meta will be a slightly different. For now, some of the top Shaman decks don't even run Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem, so
I know.
Just put that into perspective, right? So just remember that that's a thing, and then you might suffer inside a little bit.
Well, if they don't run Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem, this is pretty much an indication what it's going to be like. And they're still strong, even with it, without it. So it doesn't even matter. Oh, man. This is not
But
not
small
great.
time buccaneer aggravates a bit of that package, to be honest. So I think, once, these things are looked at, which, nudge, nudge, I'm hoping is soon. Maybe.
I think it has to be. Yeah.
Maybe we get a bit of a different experience. Because now we're, February? We've got March coming up like a month from now. So we don't have another expansion for like 2 months at least. And if you consider the fact that 60 days in the internet world is like 17 years in real life, it's going to be a long 2 months.
Well, we're halfway through. So, I mean, I guess we could talk a little bit about just the general sentiments right now in the, just in the community and the playing community. And, and Xixo can confirm this. It's pretty clear. I mean, you've been seeing on Reddit recently, just people starting to get into that state or that mode again, at least the highest competitive players, just where it's just getting ridiculous as to like how much you play. And I can attest to it too. Even not playing in the legend ranks, which I actually try not to these days, you still are playing just insane amount of Shaman against it. Like yesterday I was playing a little bit and I literally played 9 straight Shaman. And, from what I was watching from some of the Watchstone yesterday, it was like ridiculous. I mean, I don't know, Xixo, how about you? Like, what are the statistics if you looked at your tracker?
Actually, we set my stats because my tracker got bugged. But in general, I don't think that the fact that you just play Shaman is like that big of an issue. I feel like the issue is that even when you don't play Shaman, the games still feel the same. Like, even the other matchups against like Rogue or Warrior, to some degree even the Reno decks, because even they just kind of curve you. So I don't know, I feel like games don't really feel unique right now.
Yeah, there's basically 2 kinds of decks, right? There's one that's aggressive mid-range, like you could put it in that bucket, and then there's one that's just Reno, right? Reno Kazakus. And I think that was exactly your flowchart, if I'm recalling correctly. And because of that, yeah, I think there is a lot of that. But I would actually still be happy if I just played something a little bit different. I wouldn't even mind seeing, a questing adventure sometimes and a Van Cleef if it wasn't just the exact same stuff. Because that's the part that gets me. And that's clear what's been bothering people, I think, recently is just, or at least more so than just, a more homogenous feel of it is playing against the same class. Like people really feel annoyed at that. So they'll have to change that. They'll have to do something about that, because that is one of their red flags, is when there's too much of a certain class being played, especially a certain type of deck being played. So we'll have to see when that actually happens. Hopefully it happens in the next man, I hope the next couple weeks or something like that.
Yeah, I want to see
Because-
like a 2 weeks ETA on something.
Yeah.
That would be the best timing, I think, or at least a reasonable timing where they can actually go over the data again if they have to, and then, after 2 weeks fix it. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Whatever they have in store is what they have in store. We'll see if they're hoping the rotation changes things and they're waiting for the,
I actually think that's what's going to
potential-
happen. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
because the huge rotation's coming, they're probably just going to wait until then, which that means another 2 months of this, which will be. I'll have to just keep playing.
That'll be like an
my
entire year of
priest.
Shaman Stone, man. After I think in 2 months it'll be like a full year.
Oh,
of
that's
Shaman
true. Actually, I didn't even think of that. That is true. After having like a year before that, which was like no shaman, right? For the most
Yeah,
part.
it was just
So
like an entire year.
that's how they make
of
up for it,
Shaman
dude.
Stone.
It's about averages.
Let's kill Zoo and bring up our Shaman Overlords.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, anyways, let's move on. We got tip of the week here. It's just a new segment. I think this is the first time we actually get a chance to do it. So,
Sure.
I figured we would add a segment where, since we have so many of pros like Xixo on the show, that we maybe throw out a tip. Maybe for all the folks that are in the rank 5, 10, 15, whatever range, and maybe need a little bit of advice. So I picked maybe a topic that maybe a lot of folks that play Kazakus and Reno might run into a lot, which is how do you pick the best Kazakus potion? And it sounds like a very obvious thing, and sometimes it is obvious because like sometimes you're playing against Shaman, you're in dire need of clearing the board, and it's like okay, four damage across the board, very clear, right, as to what you want. But then you have to pick that second one. And then sometimes, you have that brand Kazakus play and there's like nothing going on the board. So it's like, what do I choose in that position, right? So, Xixo, I want to just kind of ask you that question. Like, how do you evaluate picking the best Kazakus potion?
It just depends on the situation. Usually you want to have you need to first figure out if you need the potion right away. Like if you need to play next turn as removal or the same turn even, then you half the time you just need a 1-mana potion as removal. But yeah, if you need it as removal, that's easy to figure out, or you don't need it as removal the next turn, then you figure out what you can play for tempo. And I guess there's like tempo, removal, and value potions. So it's like if you need it right away, you pick the 1 or 5 mana one and just like try to get any sort of damage.
Mhm.
If you are on the tempo and you want to just like get more stuff, then just like try to get a 5 mana potion, resurrect 2 minions, and go from there. But if you don't feel like you will play the potion it's soon anyway, then you probably go for a defensive 10 mana one just to have it, and like a 6 damage AoE or Mass
Right.
Polymorph. So yeah, just need to figure out when you want to play the potion before you pick the mana cost.
So when you get 2 of them, so when you get that turn 7 brand Kazakus, generally do you pick a 5 and a 10? Or I mean, and you don't have like this immediate need for remove or anything. Do you generally
just,
pick
like,
5, 10 or double 5, double
I think
10?
kind of just imagine that you only pick one and like pick as if you only have one,
Mhm.
and like after you pick that, you see if that was a potion you needed or if that just failed you.
Right.
The one you needed, then you can
Mhm.
go for like another one for just more tempo or whatever. Like if you need a Mass Polymorph, you go for 10 mana first, see if you get it, and if you don't, you pick it again and try again. If you do get it, you might just go for a 5 mana tempo potion at that point.
Okay, so
Yeah.
generally remove or tempo, like those are the 2 best options.
Yeah, I mean
for
the
it.
times where you play Pen Kazakus and have time for it are probably the games so you need value and not removal,
Removal.
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah,
When you play Pen Kazakus, you probably go for more value.
yeah. I don't know how many times it's just like, okay, the board's clear. I pick it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pick this. I'm gonna pick this, and then all of a sudden, he throws down an 8/8 or something like that. I'm just like, damn it, I should have chose that 8 damage one or what, and then throw down an 8/8 behind it, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's definitely good. General one. There was something I was gonna ask you about. So with the resurrection one, are you very cautious about the fact that you've played Doomsayer, for instance? Because a lot of times, right, with these Reno decks, you do get that Doomsayer play beforehand, and anytime I get Doomsayer, I pretty much avoid that resurrection one unless I'm playing, just some kind of. Actually, a lot of times it's Jade deck, so which it can help out with at times, even if you get it right, just because they have to remove that. I don't know. Do you ever feel hesitant about that?
I think you don't not pick the resurrect minion potion because you play Doomsayer. I think it's the other way around. In the matchups, where it's relevant, you don't play Doomsayer because of the potion. So it's
Okay.
like in the matchups that you play Doomsayer, it's gets some sort of aggro, and they probably won't let Doomsayer go off, so you are fine with getting it back. And
Right.
in the pure control matchups, you try just not to play the Doomsayer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah.
That's a very good. That's a very good way to look at it, because if I like in matchups that are very quick, your best like effects are probably like the AoE, right? If you get like a
Mhm.
1 mana potion, deal 2 damage plus 3 damage, for instance, so you can get like an explosive shot, or you get like 4 armor, deal 2 to everything. On a 1 mana potion, otherwise it's 4 damage to AoE and then 7 armor. That's what you're looking for against the aggro decks. When you're talking about control, if you're thinking about resurrecting anything, then I think just playing Doomsayer is not the way you want to go. Like, you could still do it against aggro. Like, it's not a bad. It's better than polymorph against aggro, for instance.
Yeah.
Very often, not every time, but very often. Or it certainly is better than like drawing cards, or adding demons to your hand. But it's not like you probably don't want to be resurrecting stuff against them if you have the choice.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, maybe you have a bunch of taunts, but again, if you get Doomsayer against
Sure.
aggro, it's probably generally okay. Like, and if you do that, maybe you take armor 2, just additional health.
I wouldn't
when it's other-
prioritize it.
Yeah.
It's also honestly like it's about the board texture as well. Because that's the thing with Kazakus, is they made them so like I think what's most important is remembering the odds of getting something, right?
Yep.
Like the potions. Like you have if you're popping a potion, you have about 60% chance on a 1 mana potion to get exactly one effect, right? If you need a combination of 2 effects, it's about 25%. So
Really? It's that good?
yeah, if you
Huh.
want like exactly Fellbloom and Mystic
Right.
Rule,
Right.
for instance, it's like 25% chance to
It's
get
different on 1 mana potions than on like the other potions.
Yeah, there's
because
more. That's
1 mana
true.
has one less option.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
So
less
if you
of
go up
those.
to like the 5 and 10, I think it drops to
It's
20%.
53% to get one.
Yeah,
Specific
20%.
one.
Yeah, it's like
That's
50.
pretty good, though.
Yeah,
53?
53 to get one.
Okay, 53 to get one and like 20 to get two. So it's still 1 out of 5 to get the exact potion you need. So with 2 rolls on Kazakus, technically you're a little bit above what you'd anticipate. So I honestly, like, again, figure out what it is you need in the specific case, but remember those odds. Like, that's the most important. Like, remember 60-25 for the 1 mana potion. Remember 53-20 for the 5 mana and 10 potion, and then figure out if the risk is worth it if you don't pick up something specific.
Yeah, a lot of times, like Xixo was saying, you end up missing one of them, and then you have to make up for it with the second one. So between the 2 potions, you usually
should be
have what
good,
you
yeah.
covered. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
funny that way.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think that's good advice. I think that's going to be great advice, and maybe some folks that play Kazakus a bunch will be able to heed some of it and get some success out of it. But why don't we move on to topic of the week? And I chose this one this week. Obviously we'll take turns choosing different ones, but I was just thinking about, we've been talking a lot about just, what to do with the classic set and, what to remove and whether we should move cards to wild and not and whatnot. And, I wanted to bring up this subject or topic that we may have discussed a long time ago, but we haven't discussed it recently, which is, given that Hearthstone's been, is this a 3-year anniversary or are we going on 4? Gosh,
We're going on, I guess 4 if you include the beta.
The beta is like half year, so
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
3.5. Again, maybe March is like 3.5 or whatever. If now that we're coming into that 3-year birthday or anniversary, I think it's viable to take a look at whether Hearthstone or the team has any plans, or maybe it's a good strategy to have a Hearthstone 2, like a Hearthstone 2.0, and instead of continuing with the same title and just continuing to expand it, right? Just with more, expansions and adventures, and continuing to maintain the existing game, right? And I wanted to get what you guys think about that. Just like, do you think Hearthstone would benefit from actually having a completely new product that they sell and market and as a completely new product, and just like anything else, like StarCraft 2 or whatever it is, right? Or Diablo 3, Diablo 4, whatever. Or do you think it's better just to continue with the same the same set that they continue to maintain, and and we continue to have to fix and change things like from the original?
So let me get this clear. You're proposing that Hearthstone every single year takes all the cards that exist.
No, not every year. Not every year. But
Okay, well, whatever. Every
yeah.
so often.
Every
right?
like 3 years, 5 years, or something like that,
Sure,
come out with a new product.
every 3 years it goes, Hearthstone, here are all the cards we have right now, bam, in the dumpster, and then we start with a new set completely, right? Where it's like an insane rotation. Is that what you mean?
You could look at it that way, or you could look at it as
Yeah.
a completely new product. If you were like in Magic terms, you look at it as maybe just a completely new collection set. Like starting. You can still play in Hearthstone. Let's just say we did tournaments, right? You can still play in Hearthstone 1 tournaments. It still exists. It's just there's
It's
Hearthstone
like
2
playing
tournaments.
Warcraft 2 and there's Warcraft 3.
Yeah,
right?
kind of like that. And of
Okay,
course, the
so-
newest one will probably be more relevant just because it's the newest thing. But it's not like the old
Well,
thing.
Brood
Just
War is more, it's got a lot of traction
right now,
more
yeah,
so
like
than
esports
StarCraft
is
2.
huge again.
So
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
you look
but
at it that
I mean,
way,
Put
I
would
don't
have
know, man.
when like Put wouldn't have like went down if it wasn't for the StarCraft 2 release. So it's
Yeah.
like StarCraft 2 didn't happen, then Put would have just been that popular all the time. So I'm not sure if that's like a example you can use for the
Yeah,
idea.
that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. In fact, some people are
Right.
probably wishing that StarCraft 2
I
didn't come
honestly,
out. Yeah.
the problem I mean, of course, it would have it would be a revamp because I'm coming from this, looking at the way the collections are acquired right now, and I'm like, there's no way this works out unless you give players like, hey, pay $60 up front. Here are all the fucking cards. Have fun with it. But like a portion of the fun of Hearthstone is collection. So if you you create a new client and you call it Hearthstone 2.0, and you give it a new card set completely, so the basic set that you used to know in Hearthstone 1 is kind of gone.
I mean, it's a new
the money-
game. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like you have
it's
to
a new
look
game,
at,
but it's got the same mechanics, though, right? Like taunt, charge.
it doesn't have to. Like maybe so. Let's just throw it out there. And I'm not
Okay,
saying that
go.
this is the right thing to do either. I'm just kind of throwing it out there just for more of an interesting discussion. But what if Hearthstone 2.0 has all these aura things that we've been talking about, has these trinket things we're talking about? It's not exactly the same. I mean, it's not
It's a
literally
hero base.
just new cards and new expansions. It's not that. It's actually there's new elements that they introduce. That's an advancement of what Hearthstone 1 was.
So gear, like you would be playing at your hero would matter more. Right? Let's take an example where you get to actually use cards in your deck that they're actually equipment, so your character can be wearing a robe, a hat, a shield, or whatever.
Whatever it is, like it could be
so
any of
that's
those
like
things.
so you mean an entirely new system that's just completely distinct from Hearthstone 1, and then
I mean,
tries
you
to
could still
iterate.
have the 9 classes. It's just they're
Yeah,
adding
okay.
stuff to it. Like I think they have the freedom to add like a lot of things, and they can start from scratch. Like they, from the standpoint of our expectations, a very new product, anything's fair game. Like they can go and add stuff, and we're just like, okay, this is new, so we accept it as being new. Not like looking at it from Hearthstone 1, because every time they make a change now, we have to like take into account like, oh, what about the old players coming back? What about people have already spent money on packs? What if they don't understand this new mechanic like red mana or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
They have to take into account. If it's a brand new product, you don't have to worry about
Hearthstone 2.0 advanced rulebook. So it's like it just uses more complex mechanics because the Hearthstone 1 was for mobile players.
Oh, that's true. Hearthstone 2.0 is not mobile. It's PC only. How
Yeah.
hilarious would that be?
You have to
Oh
to
my
AD to dodge spells like fucking Frostbolt coming in.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Xixo, what do you think? What do you think about just a new
Yeah,
product?
I think that like the idea like of having more mechanics in Hearthstone would be nice, but I don't think that the game would survive a change like that. Like I think if you just like Blizzard says you have a new game, you have to buy a full new collection. The old game is basically dead, and no one would support. Like it's still the servers will be live for a couple more years, but no one cares about it anymore. People would be just like, no, I don't want to spend like $300 again to start playing, and it's like I don't think
How
the
does-
game would survive that.
See, how does Magic survive? Like just giant
It's new
collection
sets.
changes.
It's
I know, but
just
that's what I
so-
mean.
It
Essentially, a
doesn't
new
do
set.
giant collection changes. It doesn't
Yeah,
do
Magic
that.
is basically what we have right now with a
It's
standard
exactly the
set.
same with
Is it?
standard.
Oh, okay. I thought it
Yeah.
was like a lot. Like I thought the changes were much more drastic, or at least each
Well-
set was like almost its own, set. Like in tournaments happen within just those set of cards.
So
not-
I'll try to explain it to you, right, in a more concrete terms. So in Hearthstone, you have we have 7, 8 sets. I don't even know. We have very little, right? And Magic, what they do is they have what's called blocks, and in a tournament, a block consists of 3 sets,
Mhm.
right? And if you take these 3 sets together, Usually you're allowed like 2 blocks per standard. I don't know if that changed at all, but it used to be that you're basically allowed to use 6 sets together to create a deck in standard. And when the rotation hits, one of the blocks goes away, so 3 sets go away at the same time. And then you're left with the most novel block, which is 3 sets, and then you start a new block and you add that to standard. So it's like it's really rotation by block and not by set. So it's like if I told you that when the kind of like what we're doing, right? When the rotation hits, we're not losing just TGT or just
exactly
like the most recent.
right
we're losing 3 sets at once, which is a
got
block of a
Okay.
year. The only difference is that in Hearthstone, it's based on the yearly releases, and it says here's this arbitrary notion: we have beginning of year, end of year. This is what we rotate. Whereas in Magic, it's like we're gonna create this set called Blee Blah Blue, and we're gonna have set Blee, set Blas, and set Blue, and they're all gonna go away at the same time. In Hearthstone, we're just creating one set at a time, and they're not connected. It's not like League of Explorers, and then the explorations of the depths or whatever the fuck, and then the
like a
Stranglethorn
trilogy
Jungle,
type of
which
thing,
would
yeah.
be connected thematically and then rotate out at the same time. In Hearthstone, it's like, here's this Medivh dancing to disco,
be
followed
smart.
by Old Gods or whatever. It's like, what is this? It makes there's no connection to it.
Yeah.
So,
No, maybe
that's
that would
what
be
I'm
smart.
trying to go with.
Thematically, they kept it like just 3 at a time.
But they're doing it with Year of the Kraken. They're trying to just make it feel. But the thing is, like, nobody gets it. It's like Year of the what? Kraken Yogg, I guess. I mean, what the fuck is this?
Year of the Rooster. I mean, what are you talking about?
Well, the one before that.
No, I know, but yeah. So you're right. Like we definitely don't get that kind of lumping together of the 3, just all the releases that they had this past year. So I don't know. Maybe they should. Maybe they should go down that route where it's like thematically together, so it's very clear as to what disappears. I
mean, at least give me like in every single set you put in that year a Kraken. I don't care if it's called like small Kraken, Kraken tentacle. Like every set in that year needs to have a reference to the whole rotation block. Because
Small time Kraken.
small time.
If you control a tentacle, gain +5. It's like, what is this?
Man.
But yeah, you know what I mean.
Please
Like I feel
don't.
like I'd like there to be some like if you're the rooster, I want an upgrade on Angry Chicken. I want a mechanical chicken. I just want 1 chicken per set. Like give me something to tie them all together into a meme fashion that's very Hearthstone like.
Yeah,
and I think
that'd be
people
cool.
can better understand rotation blocks that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's easy at all, or if people are just gonna be confused. But
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but it would at least, be easier to figure out. Right now it's like I always have to be reminded like what's going to be pulled, in April or whatever. It's like, and it's just purely based on a date, like when these things were released. It would be a little bit easier to figure out if we had a little bit more indicator within the decks themselves or within the themes themselves as to what's going to be reset.
yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, it sounds like, I don't think they will be doing this. I don't think they don't even have the bandwidth to even create a complete new product in parallel with maintaining the existing one. So it's not something that I felt like, they could even do at this point. But, it's definitely a different type of product release that, is something that to be looked at. But yeah, buying new cards, I think that type of model of content and purchasing content, I think it makes it a lot harder to have different versions of it without everybody immediately going, well, what happened to all my old cards? Man, am I screwed? It's like, yeah.
That's the problem.
That's in a way that, you still could do stuff. You can still play the game, but everybody's going to be moving on to Hearthstone 2 at that point. Okay, well, anyways, let's move on. But before we go on to the next segment, which is going to be Mekkatorque's Workshop, I did want to give a shout out to some of the folks or a lot of the folks that listen to the show on iTunes. You can leave a 5-star review to really help folks find Value Town when they're searching for a Hearthstone podcast. And I want to give a shout out to just a few folks that have left 5-star reviews as well as great comments for us. Ebullion, the Gary Scott, JBall2K, thank you so much for doing that. And, if you guys want to support the show and do listen to it there and want to leave us a 5-star, I highly encourage that you do, because that would be amazing for us. But on top of that, supporting the show, of course, that, we are 100% supported by Patreon, which you can see at patreon.com/valuetown. And we've got like a bunch of awesome patrons right now, and of course we got to give some shout outs to them because of how amazing they are. Our legend producers, Mike T, Louis G, Dean P, continuing on. Thank you so much, guys, for doing that. You guys are the cream of the crop, even with all these awesome other patrons that we got. But I want to give a shout out to a few others too: Ray Dan, Bobby D, Bryce L, Vince F, Thomas O, Greg W, Eugene L, and Tim K. And thankfully, we've still made our Smilestone milestone. So that's what time it is right now, guys. So Xixo's first time getting to experience this, and everybody every week, I mean, we get at least 4 or 5 comments every week saying how much they love this segment. So it's time. This is what we do. We smile for a good 30 seconds here.
30? Dude,
Yeah.
you're kidding. I swear
okay,
it's
20 seconds. 20 seconds.
20, and now we're at 30. Next time it's going to be 5 minutes.
I know. That's the next milestone, 5-minute milestone. All right, here we go. Starting now. All right. That's the inner happiness of playing Hearthstone in us. It comes out every time we do Smilestone, except for our very our very creepy looking smiles.
That's our inner
Yes.
Hearthstone love.
Exactly. Well, that's for you guys. That's for the patrons. And again, thank you so much, guys, for supporting the show. The show wouldn't happen without you guys. And if you want to support it, go ahead and go to patreon.com/valuetown and take a look and make a pledge. That would be super amazing for us. And we're trying to get to Laughstone, which is actually, I think we're about $20 or $25 away from Laughstone, which you can imagine what that is, guys. It's laughing for 30 seconds straight. And that's actually going to be pretty hard to actually just laugh for 30 seconds.
Yeah, as long as we
straight.
never get to Dance Stone, we'll be fine.
Dance
right?
Stone? Oh my god. The audio folks would totally, actually audio folks are missing out on Smile right now. So
Yeah.
Laughstone is definitely
Well,
for the
there's
audio
an
folks.
awkward silence with us looking at a camera. I guess that translates over.
Yeah.
Dance is
guess
just
they
lost
could.
on them.
They could. They just have to hop on their PCs. They can see it.